I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on? It's not enough to say it's nuts. You have to explain why it's so nuts. The invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, the systems which are in place to keep the world sane are utterly inadequate to the forces that have been unleashed.
Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Tim Constantine. Check out my films. Doors of Perception is on Amazon Prime. I Call Louisiana is on Tubi, Roku, Apple, and a few more. We are booking guests for February. If you have suggestions or you'd like to be a guest, email me, forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Today I want to welcome back to the show Tim Constantine. He is a researcher, amateur historian, and host of Six Sensory Podcast. Tim, welcome back. How you doing?
Chris, it's good to see you. Doing great. Happy to be back on your show. Happy to talk to you. Loved the conversation last time and ready to do it again.
Yes, man. It was a great discussion last time. We discussed the possible true secret destiny of America as it relates to the unfolding technocratic dystopia, the secret societies and occultists directly connected to the manipulation of society to bring about, for lack of a better term, this Ahrimanic era, which we're going to be discussing a bit today. And we're also going to take a deeper dive into Steiner's vision of our relationship with technology, something called Roko's Basilisk, which I was somewhat familiar with. I did a little bit more research into that. It's a very interesting thought experiment. We'll hit the Fourth Industrial Revolution, what the Singularity may manifest. Before we get to any of that, though, remind the audience a little bit about yourself and let them know how they can find out more.
Yeah, I'm Tim Constantine. I am, I guess, a conspiracy theorist at this point, although I try to focus on history and hidden history and actually getting to the truth of the matter. That's where my true focus is. And also, we throw in a little bit of archaeology and alternative theories and all. I could go down a list of buzzwords, but I won't. But yeah, but my show is Six Sensory Podcast. I spell it out SIX. You can find me on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, and Patreon, and I do have an Instagram. And yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it there with that intro. Like that was a great way to like get the plane off the runway there, because you mentioned technocracy. And I was thinking, I guess I did touch on that last time, but we're certainly going to touch on that today, because that's what's sort of, that's the machine behind the machine, in my opinion. And it's what ties everything together. You mentioned the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Also, that's there this whole time. That's a common thread throughout this. I want to point that out. Like the two common threads here, if now that I'm thinking about it, probably if I was to put them in a list, top of the list, yeah, it'd be technocracy and the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And because what I'm talking about today connects to everyone. I mean, Musk, J.D. Vance, Peter Thiel, Kurzweil. So your big tech overlords, your current administration, everyone with current power and influence, and that's the modern. I could keep going too, but this also goes back to the Nazis, Wells, Huxley, Philip K. Dick, Francis Bacon, George Washington, Thomas Gates. Like, I mean, Lovecraft,
Yeah.
Rudolf Steiner, of course, and we'll talk. So this is huge. And like, just to touch on that Fourth Industrial Revolution thread one more time, Karl Marx comes to mind, because he made a remark about the people becoming appendages of the machine. And I think today's timeline, we're starting to see that appear, like people becoming, it's like, okay, when did the roles switch here? When did the machines start running us and treating us like the machine.
Right.
So it's technocracy. It's the future of
It
humanity.
is. Now, before we get too deep into this, what are your thoughts on the current state of technology, our relationship with it, our reliance on it, how powerful things like AI are becoming, and how much we're overutilizing it?
Yeah, I mean, we're on this. The way I see it is, and I'd love to talk to you later about this graph that Ray Kurzweil presented, where it shows the advancement of technology. And I'll save the details for later, but it's been very swift. I'll just put it like that. A very wild 80-year increase. And they, I bring him up because I think when I talk about what these people say, like what Kurzweil says, I talk about that because I think that's the trajectory that the people who running this world are on. That's the plan. He represents the plan for them. I just want to make that part clear. But yeah, this stuff is happening so quick, man, and it's almost like we're on a train with no conductor. The brakes are broken, and we're just hurtling into the unknown. That's how I feel about all that AI and everything. And there's no doesn't seem to be any guardrails. I think at one point Elon Musk went on Joe Rogan and was like, "Yeah, I tried to warn Congress." Not saying he's a good guy or bad guy here, just saying like he's one of the only people who I've heard say like we might want to, look out for
Yeah,
this. So yeah, we're on the
right
train.
on.
We're on a trajectory.
Well, to dive right back into Steiner's work, in your talking points, you mentioned the eighth sphere. Talk a little bit about this for those that may not be familiar. What does this concept mean?
Yes, I actually brought receipts this time. I've got
Nice.
some quotes, some quotes straight from the man himself. I went back and listened to some of his lectures again, and I pulled the quotes. And what I want to do here is show you something. Well, I'll just overview for you. Steiner was in the early 1900s talking about this eighth sphere concept that he had, and it's very deep. It's kind of hard to sort of map out, but I feel like I've done some of that mapping now. And it's he was talking about something way ahead of his time, something that people at the time wasn't really sure what he was getting at because this I think what he was talking about was kind of prophetic in that sense. It's like it didn't make sense what he was talking about until you get to 1999 and we step into the new millennia. So yeah, I thought I'd pick up where we left off with that and talk more about Steiner with the actual quotes this time and how it directly relates to our modern times because it makes more sense in this modern context. There's this really bizarre Ahrimanic post though that comes out in 2010, which is this Roku's Basilisk
Yeah,
thing, and I kind of want to present the Steiner work with that in
sure.
mind because it's so close. I had to show you this. Like, we like to talk about this, the occult undercurrent of things, and it's here big time. Um, it's so familiar to what Steiner was warning about with the eighth sphere that I have to sort of weave this in with it. I feel like, and this the Roku's Basilisk, like you talked about in the intro, it comes out in 2010 in this sort of obscure internet post, and it's before AI was really a thing in my mind. Like, I don't remember people having serious conversations in 2010 about AI, but these guys were because these guys were like the nerds in the know. So it starts on this forum by this guy who's running this machine intelligence research institute, and someone with the username Roku posted about it, and it was blocked for 5 years, but eventually it emerged as a talking point that these guys were talking about. And basically, what Roku's Basilisk is, I mean, I'll show you the Steiner quotes in a minute, but it sounds so much like a sphere to me. It's a super intelligence that wants us to build it a technological bridge so that it can come into our world and hatch a technological singularity. Ultimately, so we can merge
Right.
with it. And if you don't help this thing come into this realm, if you don't join the effort and help tirelessly, to make this happen, the super intelligence will punish you.
Hmm.
And so all these guys are on this thing talking about this, and they're saying, what happens when this thing reaches singularity or reaches full
Yeah.
sentience? And I want people out there to listen. Make no mistake about it. These big tech overlords know about Roku's Basilisk. They have all deeply philosophized this. Now, I'll show you the Steiner stuff unless you want to jump in,
Well,
and
I
we'll
just
show you
wanted
how.
to reiterate the part about whatever this super intelligence is punishing humanity for not assisting in ushering it in, even if someone knew about it but didn't do anything to help bring it into this realm, that person would be tortured and punished in horrible ways. So keep that in mind, everyone.
That's it. Yeah. So it's I got, I'll probably reiterate this in a minute, but I got to the point with Roku's Basilisk where I was like, okay, is it a thought experiment?
Yeah.
But we'll get to that maybe later. But this is a Steiner lecture from October 18th, 1915. He's talking about the context begins. He's talking about the eighth sphere and how it comes about from a mineral that has been wrested from the earth. I looked up the word wrested. It just means like pulled. So it's like a mineral that's been pulled from the earth, maybe like lithium or some of the other minerals we use to make this technology to access the internet and AI. And so he says, somewhere between the Elohim and the Luciferians and the Ahrimans, there are astral forces trying to latch on to humans. And of course, in a modern context, technology is a means to do that. He also says Lucifer and Ahriman strive unceasingly to draw from the earth's substances whatever they can snatch in order to form their eighth sphere, which then, when it is sufficiently advanced, will be detached from the earth and will go on its way into the cosmos together with Lucifer and Ahriman. So this thing does latch on to earth with the hopes to one day go out into the, I don't know, the multiverse or whatever we're going to call it, another realm. If everything were to run without a hitch for Lucifer and Ahriman, if they were everywhere able to rest as much as they rest from the organ of the head, I'm going to stop here and point something out. The last time he used the word rest was when he was talking about pulling in minerals from the earth. Now he's talking about rest in context of pulling something from the human brain. So if you put those two together, I think you could see where a case to be made that now the mineral is in the human head and they're trying to pull something from the organs at this point. That would be your neural link in a modern context, made from the minerals. So he's talking about, okay, if they're able to wrest this stuff from the human brain, Earth evolution would soon reach a point where Lucifer and Ahriman could succeed in destroying our Earth and in leading over all evolution of worlds into the eighth sphere, so that Earth evolution as a whole would take a different course. So I think the Roku's Basilisk thing that does sort of mysteriously emerge in 2010 on the internet, the Roku guy has said that he didn't even really know why he was putting this stuff on the internet, and that he kind of regrets it and stuff like that. Like it just came to him. I think that this Roku's Basilisk on this AI forum syncs up with the eighth sphere.
Along the lines of the Roku guy receiving this information, this is not the first time this has happened in the Silicon Valley tech world. These essentially nerd dorks tend to get these downloads, whether it's because of rituals or psychedelics, but they get their information, many of them claim this themselves, from something else.
Yeah, Nick Land, who is one of these sort of occult philosophers to the Silicon Valley nerd dorks, says it talks about how how artists and sensitives can channel info from these beings and bring it into our realm. He's another sort of philosopher king to these guys. They love Nick Land. They love Curtis Yarvin. They love Lovecraft even. So that's why like that big list of names I brought up in the beginning is part of the singularity. It's a philosophical singularity where all these guys throughout history, going all the way back to Karl Marx and before, have put us on this trajectory towards the singularity with the philosophy to sort of get us there in a mental capacity. And this whole Roku's thing is just I gotta write it out a little bit more because it's too perfect. It's like it gets weirder from there because I think it brings in well it the original post, I'll just put it like this, that Roku put up was called the quantum billionaire trick. That's where this starts to get weird because one of the guys you could argue that is building this bridge for an eighth sphere situation is Elon Musk.
Right.
Elon Musk, speaking of the philosophy here, Elon Musk's grandfather was one of the first technocrats. And technocracy, of course, I don't think I've given a definition for that yet, but it's a theology that will facilitate bringing in this Ahriman Roku's Basilisk sort of a thing. It's a world that's ran by technology and sort of these science priest kings or a science priesthood who acts almost like an oligarchy or something and sort of it's the few ruling the many, you know. And there's so that's the technocracy vibe, but I think Elon's deeply involved with this and Grimes as well, because she's talking a lot about singularity as well. She's if you listen
Now,
to
I'm
some of
really
her
not
stuff on
familiar
Lex
with this Grimes character. Honestly, this is the first time I've ever heard about her. Talk a little bit about who she is.
She is like a rapper, but I don't know. She's got kind of her own genre going on with that. She's like kind of like one of these rich kid trust fund musicians who you know uh, what do they call them? Industry
Yeah.
plants. I'm not saying for sure that's what it is, but she fits that sort of a bill. But she got really big with when she started dating Elon Musk. So she's like this musician who dated Elon Musk, and the why it fits in with this is because the reason why they became a couple in the first place was over Roku's Basilisk.
Really?
And I just thought it was interesting, yes, because they're both these technocrats. Like, if you listen to what she says on all the podcast interviews, she's definitely a technocrat. She was using Roku's Basilisk as an artistic device for her song Flesh Without Blood. And so I started looking into this. This is a song that she puts out a music video for. Elon Musk sees the video. He sees a character called Roku's Basilisk, and then they start talking on Twitter. They create dialogue on Twitter, and then they become this couple, right? But so I looked into it, and I was like, okay, this is weird that these people know about this and are like creating relationships around it. So I looked at that word, or I mean that title, Flesh Without Blood, and I was like, okay, first of all, it's kind of metaphysical, kind of has like a robot vibe to it. There's a lyric in that song that says, I got a doll that looks just like you. I'm thinking, okay, this is silicon robot still vibes. The album art is, this is where it gets good. The album art is I think, if you ask me, it features Ahriman's face. If you've ever seen depictions of Steiner's Ahriman, and you look at the single art for Flesh Without Blood, that's Ahriman's face, and it's above an 8-pointed star of Ishtar, and then on each side or each shoulder of the Ahrimanic face, there's 3 prongs, 6 total, 3 on each side. That's something you see in the ancient reliefs of Ishtar as well. So to me, this is like her acting out this divine feminine, and above her watching over it is Ahriman. That's the symbolism. So, and they start their relationship over this whole thing. Musk knew what it was. That's what I'm saying. Like, these guys know about Roko's Basilisk. It's a philosophy to them.
Yeah.
And
I always
so,
wonder how deep their understanding of the occult connections really go as it relates to the technocratic movement and some of the agendas that they're putting forward? Is it just that they're receiving this information, that it's just coming through them, and they're otherwise ignorant about the larger implications? They just believe they're trying to save the world with this AI nightmare that they're bringing out.
I mean, I've wondered about that too, but I think some of them know. That's why I wanted to highlight Grimes and Elon Musk, because I think they actually know what they're doing. I mean, Elon's made tweets on Twitter before about, of course, his going to Mars thing. And he talks about how we're going to set up a Mars technocracy. He's used that terminology multiple times. And Bezos will get on there and respond, count me in. And then you, like I said, you go watch some of these Lex Friedman interviews with Grimes. She's saying that in her mind, Homo sapiens are going to become Homo tech. So I think they know, Chris. This batch knows.
The level of technology and AI that we have access to now was probably available to our military-industrial complex and three-letter agencies for a very long time. And if that's the case, what would be stopping them from utilizing the level of video AI technology for news stories that we've seen in the past or high-impact events that have already happened?
Mm-hmm. Are you saying like them using it, like recycling footage for a psyop
Up
sort of
to
thing?
creating footage and
Oh yeah.
using AI to alter it to a point where it's mostly theatrics.
Yeah, I asked this question once on in a podcast, and somebody left an interesting comment, and they said all that was going to be monitored on the blockchain. Now, that that seems to be what some people are going to go back to and say, "Oh, it's all transparent on the blockchain. They can't fake it." But I'm not so sure about that. I think if they have the means to do what you just laid out, they will
Yeah.
do. What I mean, they some of these psyops. I mean,
But I have
the
to
lengths
wonder if
they
they've
go to.
already done it in our past. If they already had access to the level of AI that we're seeing now, it would have been easy for them to completely create an event out of AI and present it to the masses as real.
Yeah, I'm with that too. I mean, this technology seems to if you go to the pre-programming that I think was laid out on us through the movies. I think if you go back to 1968, that was a kind of a year for this, where you see 2001: Space Odyssey come out. Kubrick, of course, drawing from I think Arthur C. Clarke's novel. There, they show a AI on the spaceship that's talking to the human, and then at some point it tries to take over and it goes rogue. Well, that's 1968. How did they know about that? Was that technology already in for these people in the
Depends on
know?
who you
Did they
ask.
did they
Some will
know it was
say
coming?
they've had access to
Right.
that for hundreds of years, or at least 50 years or more.
Yeah, yeah, and I think there's a degree of that happening. I mean, I do think like with the iPhone, they've got you know 50 years worth of plans for that already. They know what that's going to look like in the next 20 years, and they know what the tech looks like too, and they're just not putting it out yet because it's a business plan at this point. They're just going to make money off of it. I don't know if that's the best example, but I do think that some of this tech, another one that comes to mind with military tech would be the latest Top Gun movie, where that opening scene, he Tom Cruise gets in this, very advanced looking jet and takes off and beats some record or whatever. And all the plane nerds online were talking about how that we've been telling you that this plane exists for years. Everybody said it was a myth. So it's what happened there was the military decided to release the information in this movie that they had this plane. But people in the know had been saying that existed for at least 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they have the tech. They have the tech. And I think this is like there's an industrial revolution thing happening here with you look at the original people who perpetrated that. You look at these power families like the Rockefellers, Carnegie, JP Morgan, and maybe the Vanderbilts. Those are the people who bring in the Industrial Revolution, change American life, create this sort of that really, if it didn't create it, really solidified the class where now it's like used to be like middle class and then the rich people, and there's this huge gap in between. Now it's hard to even get to middle class
Yeah.
for some
Yeah.
people. So that class distinction, a lot of that goes back to the Industrial Revolution, as does the 9 to 5 workforce, and just that us versus them. I mean, they essentially entrapped a lot of America into this Bruce Springsteen song, where it's like you just got to work,
Yeah.
man. You just suck it. Just go to the refinery and shut up. And those people are in the know on so many different levels, and they changed the course of this nation. And I think the neo robber baron industrial revolutionists are the Musks, the Bezos, Zuckerberg, Sam Altman, all the guys you saw at the inauguration who were very happy to be there because they got big plans for this country. That's the new fourth industrial revolution, and they're going to bring it in via tech. And when it comes to those people, I think they're in the know with this tech and how advanced
Yeah.
it is.
We're already starting to see the implementation of AI governance in certain institutions. In the town where I live, they have the street cameras on every corner, but not only that, they have the license plate readers on every corner. This surveillance technology is almost all encompassing already, at least here in the United States, and I'm sure it is in Europe and other places as well. This is another layer to what's unfolding. I think a lot of what's happening with the whole immigration thing is going to be to roll out more surveillance tech, more AI law enforcement, more AI governance. When it comes to the replacing of the workforce, this is another thing that's already starting to roll out right now. More and more people are becoming unemployed and unhireable according to these institutions and corporations. We're already in it. I think we're past a point of no return when it comes to AI governing our lives in a sense.
Yeah, I think, yeah, we've crossed a Rubicon in that sense, certainly. And I think we can look over to Europe and see where we probably don't want
Oh,
to be.
yes.
That'd be a good, because it, like some of the stuff you're describing, of course, is going on over there. The surveillance state, the 1984 surveillance state is in full force over there. They're arresting people for social media posts, cops showing up at your door, asking you to, do you know what your daughter said 3 weeks ago on whatever app? Like that, it's out of control over there. And I want to comment on something. They like to use these race wars or immigration wars, and that's a big thing going on over there. Of course, we know that there's been a wave of people who have come into Europe, a lot of them Middle Eastern, and this is like never let a good crisis go to waste to the technocrats. So, from what I'm hearing, what Europe and the parliament and all that, what they want to do is use that to their advantage and bring in digital IDs, with the reasoning behind it being this immigration problem. And they want to use Palantir for that, is what I've been told. And that's Peter Thiel's military tech company, data and all that. Data's the new gold. It just, so yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Like this is on us, and it's very scary what's happening over there. On a global scale, I think what they want to happen here is for humans to take the back seat and for technology to drive, and for just going back to, Plato, even like the few ruling the
Mm-hmm.
many. And if I could go back to this whole Grimes Elon Musk thing, like, you know, the culprit of their relationship is Roku's Basilisk, and then they say, or Grimes says later on Twitter, that on their first or second date, well, first of all, on the first date, Elon brings her out to his factory, and I was like, oh, that's such a fourth and industrial revolutionist thing to do. Of course, he brings her to the factory, and then on the second date, he takes her for a ride in one of his cars, and he takes his hands off the wheel, puts his hands over his eyes, lets the car drive, lets the car make turns and turn the turn signal and all that, and I don't care about the celebrity gossip of this, by the way. This is just a metaphor, and I'll be darned if it's not a metaphor for technocracy here, with them wanting to literally have people take their hands off the wheel and let technology drive.
It's moving so fast. There's a lot
Yeah.
to navigate right now, and a lot of big decisions that need to be made about how we're going to interact with this, how much we're going to give our lives to this technology, how much we're going to have to not participate in order to still have somewhat sovereign lives. On top of that, there seems that there's going to be a split in society. Those that love this technocracy, those that want to plug any kind of wearable and become part of the system and plugged into the matrix in every way possible, and they'll have that group of people living in the big smart cities. And then that leaves the rest of us that will most likely eventually be targets for the other class because we have resources that they need. It's very interesting to see the possibilities of how the future could play out.
Yeah, I think that, and talking about timelines and that sort of thing, that was actually mentioned in some of the Agenda 2030 papers that I believe the UN rolled out. They talked about how in the cities it would be this sort of they didn't call it a surveillance state. They called it more like a utopia, but of course we know what it would be. But they talked about how, everybody will be, eat nothing and be happy and, rent free and, all that stuff in the cities, but outside of the cities, there'll be these little pockets of people who decided to go off grid, and we don't know how those people are doing. We're worried about them. And then, yeah, hopefully the targeting doesn't stop, like you say. But I think, to speak to the split in society, that's growing bigger every day. I don't even need to give examples for that. When they split society up, what they like to do is they like to get everybody emotionally invested in something, and then have a big event, and then the psyops blossom from there. But those split in society things, that the us versus them notion works to their benefit for taking this power in the first place. And I think that's how they get what they want, and they usher in this technocracy. It's a which is, by the way, a government or control system of society by elites and technical experts. That's what this is all about. I don't hear a lot of people talking about this.
The tech native America.
That's why I wanted to. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, you could trace this back to, speaking of Musk, his grandfather was first technocrats, alongside of people like Aldous Huxley in the 30s. Aldous Huxley wrote a book called Brave New World, and he talked about a scientific dictatorship, not unlike the dictatorship that we see in the 1984 George Orwell stuff. See, I think what Orwell was doing was he was looking at the works of H.G. Wells and Aldous Huxley and saying, okay, it sounds kind of fun, and like, it sounds kind of like, oh wow, we could change the world with this new way of. He's like, no, let me show you what that would look like. So I think that Orson Welles had his finger on the pulse in that regard. I think 1984 is a timeless work, and I think everybody should have it, honestly, and read it. But yeah, everything is decided for you. You have no say. You're ruled over by the science priestcraft. This is very New Atlantis, very much Francis Bacon's New Atlantis, where he has what is it? There's a secret order who's starting this utopic society in that book, and they call themselves like the Order of the Temple of Solomon or something like that. And it tells you what's going on there with this. It's telling you that there's an order
Mm.
of initiates who embarked on this journey to create this new enlightenment society, this utopic society. And all the guys who started this country read that book. They read New Atlantis,
Yeah.
George Washington, Jefferson. So Elon Musk has said on Twitter that he reads a portion of that book every week. So that I think you can see where they're getting this from.
Yeah, 100%. Let's get into the possibilities of what the singularity would look like. This is another one of those, depending on who you ask, they would give you a different perspective of what they believe the singularity is. Could it be that we've already reached a technological singularity and the artificial intelligence has reached a point where it's accessing information and has a level of sentience? Or does it look different? What do you think the singularity is going to look like?
Yeah. Maybe it's reached sentience, and we just don't know how that's going to present itself yet. That's what I'll say about that. Uh, Boy, that's a deeply theological thing to try to tackle too. Is like, is this thing sentient? But I think they're trying to. I think behind the scenes they're working to bring this in because of Ray Kurzweil. The technocracy is what's so important about understanding that is that it's the thing that's going to lead to the singularity. And I think that's an occult singularity for a lot of these people. And for discussing that, I think this goes back to 2030 Agenda 2030 and Ray Kurzweil, who said that the singularity would happen in 2029. Those two things parallel to me because it's 2029, 2030. They're so close that this is like the same agenda. I'll read you what Musk has to say about the singularity because I think these are the people that are following this
Yeah.
timeline that are trying to, I think, bring this in. What happens when Musk has said, what happens when someone vastly smarter than humans comes along in silicon form? It's called the singularity. It's like a black hole because you don't know what happens after that. It's hard to predict. And then there's another quote that I got to throw in here because I think this like puts the bow on it. This is from Ben Gortzel. He's a scientist and he's a friend and sort of a follower of Ray Kurzweil. So these people are following this timeline to bring this in 2029. Technological event.
Hey, Tim,
that
you
to
broke
the
up
human
there
mind,
real
it appears
quick
almost
for about 10
instantaneous.
seconds or so. Can you repeat what you were just saying?
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. I think the internet might
Oh,
be
it's all
being
good.
weird. Okay. Yeah, so this is a quote to sort of tie up the Musk quote. This is from Ben Gortzel. He's a scientist. He's a friend of Ray Kurzweil, who's trying to bring this in. These guys, I think, are trying to bring this in 2029. So he says the singularity is a point in time when technological events occur so rapidly that to the human mind, it appears almost instantaneous. It's similar to the concept of intelligence exploding that was posited by the mathematician I.G. Good in 1965 when he said, the first truly intelligent machine will be the last invention that humanity needs to make. He goes on to say that the singularity is AI, nanotech, life extension, genetic engineering, mind uploading, advanced energy tech, and etc. All these things happening at once boost each other. So the sense that I got is that, at least to them, this is like humanity sort of breaking out of an egg on a foreign planet. It's like we don't know what kind of world we're stepping out into. We're breaking out of one realm into another, and we don't know what that looks like. But to them, I think it represents ushering in new forms of government, new forms of surveillance, new forms of control. And it's a scary concept to us because of all the unknowns. And I think it's important to talk about this because most people aren't concerned. They don't even know this is happening, or they're blissfully unaware, and there's just no guardrails. So I think it's super important to understand this, and like, uh, people are going to be swept up in this wave
Mm.
of this thing, and they know this. Like, that's what Gordy Rose himself, who created the D-Wave quantum computer, he called it a wave. He said, this is a tsunami. This is a wave that is coming right towards us. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on how
Go
it's
ahead.
currently affecting industries like entertainment and music? I had a guest on the other day saying about the ridiculous amount of AI artists that are coming out and taking over positions on music charts, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. Another thing we discussed is it should be imperative that social media companies, even Spotify, should have a AI disclaimer, a disclaimer that allows people to know that what they're watching or listening to is AI, and it should be mandatory for everything we put out there. And that seems like it could be easily done, but I really don't think that's ever going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I do kind of see where's, and I hope they implement this, but like with the Sora 2 stuff, it says Sora on the screen. So it's like, oh, okay, that this is
Mm-hmm.
indication that this is AI. I think that's good. Um, I think that it is getting redundant, to your point. There's just so much AI out there now. It's becoming redundant. Hopefully, whether it's AI videos or yeah, I've heard the AI music too. Hopefully that is going to show us the need to reclaim our humanity, or just to keep our humanity in the first place. Because, I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't want to hear two AI bots having a
No.
podcast. Just don't
Yeah.
care. Like, that would not be entertaining to me at all. It's the human element that makes this fun in the first place, and I think it's the human element in music that makes that cool too. It's like you go back and watch some of these old okay, go back and watch the old MTV unplugs with some of the grunge bands where you've got Scott Weill and STP sitting in a rocking chair, rocking back and forth. It's kind of like it's you can tell it's live music. It's not perfect. Those guys are great musicians. Don't get me wrong, but he's swinging back and forth in a rocking chair. There's it's rough. It's rough and
Yeah.
gritty. Kurt Cobain up there smoking a cigarette on unplugged, doing stuff where you watch some of the videos now, and it's like he'll close his eyes, hit a note, and then open his eyes, and you just get blown away with this burst of impenetrable blue, and it's like, wow, this guy just tapped into
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
not going to get those moments with AI,
No.
man. So hopefully it helps us keep our
I
humanity.
hope so.
I think if you look at this work of Ray Kurzweil, um, and that graph I talked to you about, that makes sense when you bring in the Nazi stuff later. It's like, 'cause so what he's been doing is he's been saying with confidence since 1999 that this will happen in 2029. So it's like Kurzweil comes out, he gives you this 30-year prediction of when this is going, and he's stuck adamantly to that. He's said it with confidence all these years. Singularity will happen in 2029. Um, I looked at that year, 1999, where he made the prediction. I thought that was interesting because The Matrix came out that year. I thought there was a lot of Gnostic cult, parallels with that. But also, if you look at the graph, I think you see the Nazi occult element here emerging. And what it is the first computer. If we take this tech boom way back to the beginning, the first computer comes out of Nazi Germany in 1941. And I think we stepped through a doorway at that point. I think humanity, somewhere around 1947, stepped through a doorway. And we stepped onto this technological timeline that was developed by the Germans. So if you look at Kurzweil's graph of computer technology, starting with the Nazis in the 40s, it's a perfect incline. It's too perfect. Even Kurzweil himself says it's as if someone is monitoring the growth of this thing behind the scenes because it's a perfect line extending up. And it's like, okay, is somebody saying, okay, like we talked about with the iPhone, like they've got that planned out. It's just a business model at this point. The next 20 years is just mapped out. It's like somebody did this with our technological timeline. It's like, okay, 1948 we give them this. 1949 that's when we'll introduce this. 1950 okay, that's when it'll be. It's just too perfect. And at this point it's a perfect 80-year progress up. So it doesn't pause for economic recessions or wars or anything. Someone has humanity on the program, and whoever that is planning for it to end up somewhere, of course. But it's just interesting to me that it started with the Nazis.
You,
And I would go back to Steiner and, with that theory that we talked about earlier is involving Ahriman guiding humanity into singularity. Steiner dies in the 20s. Before this even happens in the 40s with the Germans, the text starts showing up in the 40s, and it's just perfect incline from there. It's like, what really is going on here?
you can see the timeline of technology and the direction that it's headed, the direction it steers humanity. And you would think if humans were solely responsible for developing this, that we would have more technology that truly benefits humanity. Instead, it's more and more anti-human as we go forward. And to me, that just points to that the origins of this is coming from something possibly non-human.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole Nazi tech boom is a crazy case study. It gets woo-woo real quick. You know, think about it like this. In the 30s, they were a broken country with their burning their money in the streets. No army. Within a decade, they're a superpower, and they're spearheading this technological incline. And so it's like one day this group called the Nazis show up, and they've got all this stuff that's 20 to 50 years ahead of everyone else. And it's like, okay, what really happened here? And then you look into it and you see that, oh, they emerged, the Nazi party emerged from an occult order called the Thule Society. You could take that to the bank. I'm sorry that 80 years of World War II documentaries don't cover this, but it doesn't change the fact that this is what happened. I've looked into it, like I could break that down for the next hour. They came from the Thule Society, and that was an amalgamation of at least 10 different occult orders. Some you've heard of, some you haven't. And what happened here is they not only were steeped in ancient occultism, they produced all this brand new stuff. This is the weird dichotomy there, and there's got to be a connection. But what they did was they produced the first TV, the first computer, the first particle collider, rockets, jet fighters, night vision, radar, sonar, guided missiles. I mean, the guided missiles scared the British. They thought it was magic. Like, what, so where did all this German progress come from? And the whole thing strangely built on the occult, on this occult scaffolding. It's like, it's kind of crazy. And, it's interesting if you try to study history and figure this out. You don't see any signs of progress for the Sumerians either. It's just a side note here. That's another enigmatic occult group. There's no tools, no objects that history can point to see the progression of the Sumerians. It's just 3000 BC. These people just emerged civilized and advanced. Star knowledge. Apparently they knew about the cosmos, and they had a map of the planets and all that. If we listen to what they say that their kings came from the heavens and that they talk to entities. So if you go back to Germany, I don't know. Did gods begin giving humans tools again in the 40s? I won't answer
Yeah.
that, but for sure there's a strand of occultism here.
Something else that coincides with these eras of not only unrest, but major change in society. If you look into any of the Tartaria stuff, there's evidence that there are mass resets of humanity, information lost, cataclysms. What's happening now with the erasure of information, the changing of information, the deletion of literature? Even, I would think, the Mandela effect indicates that there are intentional changes being made in our reality to prevent the future generations from knowing about our true history. And this could go all the way up to eliminating a large portion of the population to ensure this cycle continues.
Hmm. And going back to the Industrial Revolution for a minute, I see. So you get all these years. I call them rollout years. 1968 was one for sci-fi, or there a lot of the sci-fi coming out of 68 was telling us what's going to happen. 1999 was one where the Matrix comes out, the Ninth Gate comes out. I mean, a cult breakdown of the Ninth Gate is wild. Let me tell you, it fits into this stuff too. Of course, Ray Kurzweil's book's 98. I think another one was back in the Industrial Revolution, and it was 1880. And that's where I saw them really starting to get rid of books and delete the history. And who knows, man? Like you brought up Tataria. Who knows how many sort of, I'll just call them resets have occurred here. But for sure, one happened in 1880. And that's the year that you see these robber barons making these big moves. 1881, I think it was, is when Vanderbilt, robber baron, brings over the Cleopatra's Needle. He imports an Egyptian obelisk and puts it in Central Park and has a big ritual ceremony out there with thousands of Freemasons. They were doing something. And they were also bringing in the Industrial Revolution. And also in that year is when you see John Wesley Powell coming on board, working with the Smithsonian, bringing in all this utopian science priestcraft thought. They're drawing heavily from Karl Marx, the appendages of the machine. They're drawing heavily from Darwin. And what they're doing is they're getting rid of all these weird other things that get in their way, like were there giants? Don't worry about that.
Right.
That was, we don't want to, let's not tell them about the giants who may have, worked with the Tartarians. Let's not tell them about the mound builders who had advanced mathematics, who built their mounds with math that's advanced to us today, advanced trigonometry even. Let's not tell them about that. Let's hide all the ancient sites in America, and let's not tell them that people were seafaring and coming over here and creating these little mini civilizations. They had a grid of commerce happening over here in the ancient world where they're bringing this copper out of the Great Lakes, and they're the Mississippi's a super highway with like advanced cities. I want to remind people that in the 1500s, when some of the explorers came into South America even and went to Mexico City, which was called Tenoch or Tenochtitlan, I believe at the time, they said it was the most advanced city on Earth. They said this is
Yeah.
Atlantis. So we don't think about the past that way because we've been programmed not to.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of that was swept up in 1880 for sure. And who knows how many examples of that there really are where it's like, what really happened to, was there a Tartaria? And well, yes, there was. There was definitely one over in Russia because it's still on the old maps. What happened to that? How advanced were they? You talked about the free energy. Well, you talked about Tartaria having advanced tech, and I think that what would be included in that would be like the frequency bells, like the giant bells that they put up in the towers, and they can get everybody on the same frequency and maybe heal big swaths of the population. Who knows how advanced that was? We see that with the pyramids too in South America, like they had gold tops or copper tops in some cases where they were shooting frequencies back and forth to each other. Tesla was looking into this. He was going out west and looking at the medicine wheels, and he thought that they had a network of like an ether sharing network, global. So yeah, this stuff's been hidden, and I know I just went on a
that's
major
cool,
tangent
man.
there, but
Last few minutes, how do you think the UFO disclosure extraterrestrial movement, the new rash of whistleblowers and the information that's coming out about UFOs, I don't trust any of it. I know that everything that's occurring is multi-layered. There's multiple purposes for everything, but I don't for a minute think it's about little green men coming to stick things in our butts. What do you think is behind everything with UFOs and disclosure?
yeah, boy, yeah, I don't trust it either. I'm on the fence. I know a lot of people. I guess if we're going to call this network of podcasts that we're in, if we're going to call that a community, I'd say a lot of people in that community think the whole thing is fake. You know, all the aliens are fake, the UFOs are fake, all that. I'm not there. I do think that there's an actual phenomenon, but I'll tell you one thing: when Lou Elizondo and the CIA started taking the helm of this thing, uh, I am not trusting of any of that. I'm not. I mean, a whole news network, news. Well, I think they call it News Network, or News Nation, popped up sort of to kind of cover this. They got big from covering the UFO thing. Nothing against them at all, but there was a lot happening at once where you see all these podcasters show up who they're all of a sudden there's these huge podcasts and they're interviewing whistleblowers and contactees and all this and that. It all happened at once, and you have to kind of, so it's very confusing, right? You have to kind of comb through everything. Uh, I do think there's a real phenomenon. I think what it is, in my opinion, is like I think I mentioned the Ninth Gate, that movie, that movie that comes out in 1999. You know, that movie is kind of about an ancient entity coaxing humans to help create a portal and allow it back in, essentially. If you listen to some of Chris Bledsoe's stuff today, or even Ryan, his son, on podcast, they're saying this is an ancient entity that we're dealing with. The CIA knows about this. The government knows about this. They know it's not necessarily green men from the Pleiades. These are the ancient entities that the Sumerians knew about, who, if they're real, are running the show with the UFO thing. Um, so this whole thing, I'm not like a, oh, they're demons guy. I'm not saying that either. I'm saying, there's these ancient intelligences that everybody has talked about since the beginning of time. I mean, you've got Ishtar in Sumerian reliefs standing beside Enki, and I would argue that that Ninth Gate movie is about Ishtar, this ancient divine feminine entity. The Bledsoes call her Hathor, I think. Other cultures, Aphrodite, Astarte. You go back to the some of the Bosnian frescoes in some of their old temples. They've got religious scenes, and up in the corner they've got these little UFOs. They're clearly UFOs with people inside driving the craft, and on the side of them there's an eight-pointed star of Ishtar. You've got, you could go through. One that comes to mind would be a UFO case from, I think it's Grenada. The person who saw it says, "Hey, I saw a UFO." They have them draw the craft, and on the side of the craft is the symbol of Isis, the ancient Egyptian goddess, who the Templars in the 1200s said, "Oh yeah, that's Ishtar."
Yeah.
She just goes by different names. So I would suggest that there's a old god sort of a connection to this phenomenon, personally.
I would have to agree, and if anything, like you said, I am not a it's all demons person either. I think there is an ecosystem of intelligences, including very dark and negative intelligences and tricksters that may be attempting to manipulate humanity in some way, but this is a whole other topic we can get to, man. But This was wonderful. Tim, before we close out, any final thoughts?
No, well, sure. Arthur C. Clarke, I think they seeded a lot of this stuff in the sci-fi movies. I think that's all under the umbrella of pre-programming. They called him the prophet of the space age. He said that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And I think that's a good summary quote for what might actually be happening. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
I would agree, sir.
And I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thank you. And before I let you go, remind the audience how they can get access to your content.
Yes, absolutely. Just check out Six Sensory Podcast, spelled out SIX. Mainly, I'm on Spotify and YouTube, but you can also find me on Apple Podcasts. And I do have a Patreon where I drop new members-only episodes every week. And I'm on Instagram. And yeah, Chris, great conversation, man. Thanks for having me again. Great.
Thank you, brother. We'll definitely do it again. Until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We'll talk again tomorrow. If you're looking to start your therapeutic microdosing journey, but don't know where to start, especially when looking for the highest quality ingredients, including nootropics, and what you'd expect from a true microdose capsule, check out our friends at Brainsupreme. They offer the absolute highest quality ingredients so you can start your microdosing journey knowing that you're getting top-notch ingredients. To find out more, visit their website using that link right in the description, and you can get 15% off your entire order. Hello, friends. I am so excited to tell you about Independent Media Token. Independent Media Token is a brand new way to show your support for independent media without having to donate a dime. Independent Media Token is a cryptocurrency on the Solana blockchain designed to generate funds to promote and foster the growth of independent content creators, allowing them to engage in their art without having to worry about being demonetized. Through a network of media partners, of which you yourself can become a part of, Independent Media Token's goal is to ensure the powers that be can never cut off all of our areas of funding and censor the only free voices left in the world. Join the movement today. You can pick up Independent Media Token using Phantom Wallet or the Solana wallet of your choice, where you can easily swap your Solana for IMT. Grab some IMT today and remember to always know your team. To learn more, visit independentmediatoken.com or use the link right in the description. Are you and your family prepared for an emergency? Maybe the fake alien invasion? Now is the time to prepare yourself and your family for any event. Check out Prep Starts Now. Their mission is to provide high-quality preparedness products that empower individuals and families to be ready for any situation. They're committed to delivering reliable, trusted gear to ensure your safety, security, and peace of mind in times of need. Their product selection is carefully curated to provide you with the essential gear you need to stay prepared. From emergency kits to tactical tools, every item is chosen for its reliability and practicality. Prep Starts Now understands the importance of family, and their goal is to equip you with everything you need to build a solid plan for your family's preparedness. In today's ever-changing world, being prepared is more important than ever, and Prep Starts Now is here to help you and your family stay ready with quality products and practical guidance. Use the link in the description and get 15% off your order.